What's going on, Jake? Ready for
What's
another
happening, Mark?
episode of Reef Therapy?
I'm ready for another session of Reef Therapy, if that's what
There you
mean.
go. I do need a session. I gotta unload some stuff off my chest on this one.
Oh my goodness. Well,
It's not bad.
before
Just
we
an
dive
observation.
in, is there anything
Yeah.
new going on with your tank? Because I got a lot going on with my tanks.
Yeah, man. What was the hashtag we were going to
Reef
use?
reality.
Is it Reef Reality?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I lost, 2 fish while I was traveling. And then I had a blue squamosa for months and months and months, but it never put on new growth on its shell.
Yeah.
Whereas the Durasa right next to it, it's just growing bonkers, right? You could just see that white calcified rim of just shell growth. So there was always something fishy going on with that squamosa, and then 2 days ago he just, what do you call it when they start to gape and they start
That's it.
gaping?
That's it.
So I could tell he was starting to go, and I didn't want him to decompose in my tank, so I had to pull him. Such a bummer.
Did you see any rice snails around it at all? I mean, first of all, if he has
Mm-mm.
rice snails, it should be attacking both clams.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do have little baby trochids, trocus
No, these are
snails.
like-
yeah,
these are
but
like
they're not
little
the
tiny
little
grains of rice.
spirally. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like
Um,
little sharp grains of rice. You'll see them around the mantle and especially on the underside.
I did see when I pulled him, there was a predatory whelk on him, but I had not seen him on there before. So I, as much as they are not good to have in a tank, I assume he was coming in for he knew that, the thing was on death's door. And he
The
was coming in.
finishing blow.
Yeah, there you go.
I've had some challenges with clams over the last couple of years, and all the clams I currently have are all cultured. I had a round of mortality, including my precious devil clam. I
That's
actually
a bummer.
purchased that clam trying to prepare myself that, like, for sure, I was convinced I wasn't going to be able to keep it alive.
Yeah.
But I had to roll the dice one time. But then I got a teardrop along with it, and it went to a clam. I try to quarantine clams, and by quarantine, I mean just like isolate, just to watch and make sure they're good. I've spoken with Julian at length, and it's like, yeah, you kind of want to wait like 3 to 6 months. If you buy a few cultured clams and want to add them to your tank, it's probably not a big deal. But when you're dealing with a little bit more exotics, you want to isolate them for like a quarter to a half a year. And the teardrop wild passed away. The devil clam took a couple weeks, but it was clear the direction it was going. Meanwhile, the 3 blue squamosas in the tank with them never skipped a beat.
Moroccan.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
What the heck? And that is the frustration with clams, and I think that's one of the huge challenges. There's not enough people working on them. There's not enough people paying attention to what is happening to them. And so when you have a loss like you have, and I'm assuming you probably have an ORA Durasa, and then your blue squamosa is certainly captive bred because they're not harvested from the wild. You
Yep.
just throw your hands up and like, what?
Well, and
What
that's
happened?
the why is always the curious thing, because like we're talking. I mean, I'd have to look back when I bought it. But we're talking several months of no growth, right? Like no indication that it was putting down calcium, and so clearly there was something wrong with it. But I wonder why. I photo acclimated it somewhat, right? But it's a clam. I feel like they are pretty good at self photo.
They're so light hungry, man. I've seen
yeah.
people put Gigas clams on a 24-hour light cycle,
Yeah.
like in an actual refugium or algae scrubber, and just kind of leave them down there. It's astounding what they can handle, but it's also very tough as a clam lover when you have losses that are just hard to ascribe to something.
Yeah, I feel like, because people go crazy on SPS about lighting, but I feel like clams and gigantea anemones like blow SPS out of the water. Like they'll love like 2,000 par,
Yeah, just
So-
about 3 feet under the water, just blast them practically with laser beams.
Yep. But yeah, that was a bummer.
Speaking of reef reality, sometimes, man, I'm just like, why do I buy new corals? Because every new coral or every new fish is just like, it's a roller coaster. Best case scenario, you plop it in the tank and you never have to deal with anything. But if you have, a substantial collection like I have in one of my systems where everything's connected, adding one coral can lead to a lot of challenges. And I'm in the middle. I'm not sure where I'm at right now on the stage, but I have experienced a few Euphilia losses
Yeah.
and Galaxia losses.
Ooh.
But not whole colonies. It's like single polyps, and they're not getting brown jelly. They're not whiting out. It's like over a period of like 2 or 3 days, the polyp just kind of closes in and slowly separates from the skeleton and just blows away. Like you've seen this happen slowly, maybe in like elegance corals, maybe some cinerinas, maybe some Trachyphilias, and just not happy with it. But I had been kind of planning to. All right, so I have over 1,000 corals, and so when you have this many corals, there's always something happening, right? There's always something stressing out. When you have a regular reef tank, you might have, I don't know, 20 corals, 30, 50 corals, and you're not adding to the collection that often. You're not getting corals of all different types from all different people from all over the world. And so when you just have 1 or 2 display tanks and you experience a loss maybe once or twice a year, it's easy to just kind of be like, oh, well, that sucks. I don't know what happened, but that's what happens. But when I'm trying to build the living catalog of all coral species, and more recently, I've decided that I'm not okay. I am not okay with not knowing.
Yeah.
So all at once, I had ordered like a bunch of Reef primer from Polyp Lab. I had a couple different strange or like exotic antibiotics, and I got a dissecting scope at the same time.
Nice.
So when I noticed that this disease, it's somewhere between a disease and a parasite, because there's no jelly, right? There's no funk. But when I saw the polyps were just straight coming off, I'm like, oh my God, I got to do something. So I pulled out a large orange frog spawn and one of my gold galaxias. It's so isolated. And I gave him some strong Reef primer baths. And that galaxia was crazy, because as I'm like just kind of trying to baste it, like almost all the tissue between the coralites is just literally blowing away. This was, what day is today? Wednesday, so maybe like Sunday or Monday. No, Monday is when I got all this stuff. Came in at the same time, the dissecting scope, the Reef primer, the hardcore antibiotics. So I took the Galaxia and the frog spawn, gave him some Reef primer dips, and I believe it's some kind of like potassium salt bath. They're supposed to like burn away everything. It's supposed to burn away the eggs of aqua-eating flatworms, of nudibranch, of all kinds of stuff. But anyway, so I'm putting it in there basically as the cauterizing agent, right? Just let's burn off chemically whatever's happening in there. At the same time, I took a couple samples and just put them under the microscope. So I got this really cheap microscope from Amazon. It was about $90 with a built-in LCD, and it takes pictures and video.
Oh wow, that's actually a good deal.
Yeah, and then like 2 days later, today, I found a much nicer one for like $200. So I've had this thing for like a day, and I'm all like, oh, I need better. But I was able to see something, right? And little spinny bits, let's just call them. And I believe they're ciliates, because it was like during college when I had access to microscopes and dissecting scopes, I could occasionally encounter these episodes where corals were like evaporated. They would just get consumed, and there was no obvious macro predator. And I think it was my second ever video on YouTube in 2006 was a time lapse of ciliates eating a newly settled out coral polyp, turning neon green while they're eating the coral's neon green tissue.
Oh, geez.
All right, so I know this isn't like
this is
good.
My I like
therapy.
it. It's a good story.
I'm getting it all out. So I'm really motivated to stop throwing my hands up in the air and trying to drill down. I mean, this is like the first time in 15 years I'm really leveraging my marine science degree. Like every gear is turning at the same time. Not just the biology gear, not just the lighting gear, not just the chemistry gear, but like everything all at once. All right, so the triage for those two corals was putting them in the reef primer dip to try to burn off whatever's going on. Then I put them in a 10-gallon tank with an exotic new treatment. It's not that exotic, but a couple well-known folks in the industry are doing some research with this. That's why I can't tell you exactly what it is. So they went from the burning salts bath to this other antibiotic, and so they've been there for 3 days. I'm telling you, like, if I hadn't done anything, for sure those two corals would be skeletons by now. They are not skeletons. They are not looking awesome. They're not looking terrible, but they're not, like, the disease is not progressing. So hopefully the 1-2 punch of, like, the cauterizing with the reef primer killed off the initial parasite, and then the antibiotic is preventing secondary problems. Now, I also isolated my Euphilia dominant aquarium from the entire system, put on a large power filter in there just to get some, like, surface agitation and turnover.
Yeah.
Added an air stone, and I chemi-cleaned it. Because we know the chemi-clean is some form of antibiotic. That's the only way it could really, eradicate red slime algae.
Mm-hmm.
But it's part of our larger system, so I have no misconception that I have eradicated it from the system, right? So right now the Euphilia tank is still isolated from the tank, so it still has its power heads.
Yeah, I was going to
It's
say,
got
because
an
when
air
you
stone.
hook it back up, are those potential vectors going to come back in, right?
Here's my working theory. I believe that it's a ciliate, and I believe it's probably in most systems, unless you've really gone a great length to sterilize it. And something about just current conditions or a new coral I'd added just tipped the scales a little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit. And right now I'm still, like, kind of brainstorming. I'm like, all right, how can I isolate every LPS type coral, because it's only affecting the Euphilias and the Galaxia, which are closely related to Euphilia. And it was affecting the torch corals first. I actually paid dearly because there's this hybrid torch spawn that was like lemon, lime, orange, green that I've been growing for a sliver for 6 years. It's gone. It's gone. It's
sucks.
gone. I did send a big chunk to Chris Meckley at ACI. He suffered some loss from it, but this was like months ago. But on the base of the skeleton, there's like a ton of baby coralites. So hopefully we can regrow it from these
Bring it
tiny
back
little from these tiny little shreds. And then this morning, I wake up with a mysterious fish death, and one of my African flamebacks is just gone. I'm like, wait, what? What happened?
Oh, in
What's-
your
what's-
fish only?
in my fish only aquarium.
Dude.
And same thing, I was like, I am not okay with this. I'm not okay with just chucking it up to whatever. I cut off his gill plate. I cut off a gill arch, throw him under the dissecting scope, and there was some weird exotic form of gill flukes just writhing all on the gills. And I've only done half a day's worth of research, but I wasn't able to find any matches. So it's not Gyrodactylus or Dactylogyrus. I couldn't find any exact matches. I mean, it's clearly a fluke, and it's clearly in the gills. And I started a strong Prazi powder treatment, because Praziquantel starts to degrade as soon as you mix it up. Right? And
Yeah,
I've talked
the
to
other
some-
thing about the liquid Prazi Pro stuff is the thing that the liquid suspension they use. I just learned this recently. Acts like a carbon dose, and people have seen it starve the quarantine tank of oxygen. Is it Jay Hemdahl?
Yeah, he does a
yeah.
lot of fish disease stuff. I'm
He was,
ashamed. I used to have his book. I swear this morning when I found the gill fluke, I went over here to the library to go look for it, and I'm like, where is it? Did I lose it somewhere along the way?
Yeah, he was the one that advised going with the powderized format. And that's back in our Reef Hack talks, I mentioned using a brine shrimp net. So I wanted it to fully dissolve and not get, mixed in with fish and stuff. So I would literally just kind of dangle that net, and I'd put the powder in it and put it in like a high flow area so it would have a chance to dissolve through that like mesh. And there's something Cure. It's one of the cheaper General Cure. There it is. Yeah, it's got Prazi, and I think it has
Metronidazole.
There you go. Thank you. See,
I've been on this all day, dude.
so that's what I switched to. Yeah, that's
I'm
much.
so in the zone right now. So yeah, I do believe. I don't think chemically is killing the ciliate. I really don't. I don't think it's just like a wham bam, oh, okay, you've eradicated the ciliate. But I'm sure that the ciliate doesn't like it. So I haven't yet put the Euphilia tank back online, but I'm feeling like doing a follow-up dose. Like take out half the water, fill it back up with system water, keep it, disconnected, put some carbon on there. But one thing that I do that I feel is like super critical when I'm treating antibiotics, when I'm treating with Prazipro, when I'm treating it with Chemiclean, doesn't matter if you have a protein skimmer, air stones.
Yeah.
You gotta have that air. You think that all that air that's going into your protein skimmer is plenty of gas exchange. But first of all, you're supposed to turn that off for a lot of these treatments. And second of all, the pressurized air from an air pump adds so much more oxygen to any tank. Anytime I'm having any kind of those weird kind of issues or I do a treatment, everything's got an air stone. I have air stones on certain tanks just cause. The fish tanks or the quarantine tank.
I see so many people talk about, I tried quarantine and like it wiped out all my fish, and like usually when you see the picture, it's like just a power filter on the back, and I always wonder if the medication they're using is competing for oxygen, right?
For sure.
And if they just had some big old air stones in there, their success rate with quarantine fish would go way up.
No, it wouldn't go way up. It would be dramatically different. It'd be 180 degrees different. No, that is when I'm treating Prazi, when I'm treating antibiotics, everything but copper, when I'm treating Chemiclean, even in a reef tank, I always add an air stone, man.
Yeah.
Always add air stone. I mean, this is like aquaculture 101. Everything, just you got to have that oxygen, and all the things that you might do to the tank, maybe outside of like mineral and trace element additions, but anything that's going to fundamentally interact with the biology of the aquarium, it's going to consume oxygen. Antibiotics, praziquantel, Chemiclean, which is an antibiotic, always have to have the air stone. So I'm not out of the woods yet, but now my chest really does feel lighter from just giving y'all a little piece of reef reality. And this is not a function of just having a reef tank. This is a function of running a studio and having a dozen tanks and always getting new livestock. And this is why, like, the beginning of the year, I'm like, yeah, let's get some new fish. Let's get some new frags. End of the year, I'm like, nothing. Unless it's really, 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 really special. But, man, I'm really going to spend the rest of this year, instead of getting new stuff, just making sure everything I have is in peak condition, in peak of health, and thinning out the corals that I have, because some of them just grown and grown and grown, and then you're going to get a blue squamosa clam and you're going to get a bunch of corals as soon as like September, October comes down and it cools down, because I'm just way more comfortable shipping in cooler weather than in warmer weather.
I appreciate that, and hopefully hopefully I'm not cursed with blue squammies. I went that route because I've always felt maximas are hard to keep. I've tried Croceas a few times, and it's interesting. Like when I had a Regal Angel, he would devour Croceas, but would leave like squammies and races alone. So I didn't quite. He had a taste, but no. To your point though, my wife has made that observation with me so many times, and I think I'm like you, because you
what
know
observation?
Me. Well, so like whenever my tank hits like harmony and things are growing and all the fish get along great and everything's going well, and then I'm like, I'm going to go buy a new fish or a coral, and she's like, why? Why are you rolling the dice? Why are you upsetting the harmony? Like just be happy. And so she always gets annoyed, right, when I go buy a fish, but she kind of has a point, because my tank, when I don't add anything for a long time, it hits harmony, right? I don't have issues and mysterious things popping up. But when you start to throw new things into the equation, everything changes. The dynamics in your fish behavior change when you add that other fish, right? Everybody gets upset. And God knows the last two ick issues I had were not related to a fish addition, but to an invert addition, right?
Yeah,
so
we talked about that.
She's got a point, man. Maybe
this is kind of why you should not be cycling your tank over 6 months. You should put everything in within 10 minutes
Right.
and then let it
Just-
coast and let and let everything just work itself out. Survival of the fittest. 3
Yep.
months later, you're going to come around and be like, okay, everything's cool now. No, do not set up a reef tank in 10 minutes. But yeah, if you're taking like the trickle approach to adding invertebrates, adding fish, adding corals, every introduction is an opportunity to upset the balance or the harmony, as Nicole says.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I hope things stabilize for you, man. That's frustrating, but I like your approach of, one, getting more prophylactic about it, and two, having like the information, right, the actionable insight from that microscope. That's pretty
The
cool.
frustrating part, bro, is that I have been a prophylactic about it. I've had systems that were set up to receive corals first, and you just get like the fish system, though. I hit that with levamisole a few times. That should have wiped a bunch of
True,
stuff out. But
yeah.
I guess I'm just have to get a little bit more aggressive with just I need to identify these types of gill flukes, and then just go on a like 2-month bender where every 5 to 6 days, Prazi powder, Prazi powder, Prazi powder, Prazi powder. And then with the coral systems, I'm over it. I'm done. I'm for sure, like certain kinds of corals do not get pests or parasites. But anything that does, for sure, is going to go into an isolated system. So that's why I need to clear out my first coral flat and get more corals out of there. That's where all the overflow corals are in, and that can kind of function as a pre-quarantine or an isolation thingy.
Yeah, I need to clean out my coral quarantine tank. That Malu anemone has taken over like half of it, so I need to rehome
Oh, my
that
stupid
guy.
Malu in the nano tank has decided to start doing laps. I think he took down. I think he took down some rocks. That
Yeah.
rockscape that had the all the sun polyps on it with an orange branching frog spawn on top. I think he's been moving around. He's been doing laps. He just needs to come out. Like the clownfish don't care about him. He's just a liability at this point. A great looking liability. He's not red. He's not pink. He's just like that reddish dark, not darkish red.
He looks
He's
exactly
reddish
like
dark.
mine. Yeah.
But yeah, he needs to come out of there. I'm pretty sure he's the one who pulled down the rock work, probably just like by burrowing his foot in the sand and just kind of dislodging things. So I just want to make some nice reef aquarium videos, and actually I had some huge upgrades this past weekend.
What would you do?
You might be impressed. I installed a 10 gig network here at the studio.
Oh, wow.
I have a gig internet to the studio, fiber, a gig up and a gig down. You know how hard it would be to find that? It would be so hard to find that. Just landing in this spot, discovering that I had 100 up and down for $65 was amazing. It was just like mind-blowing. And then, I don't know, about a year after I'm here, they dropped that tier down to $45. And like, okay, for $65, you can get 948 megabits up and down. Like, what?
That's gonna be good for especially your case where you're uploading content, right? And you're waiting for those uploads. And
Here's the use case scenario. I don't ever have to settle for the quality of the video after if it's uploaded. We do a lot of work to ensure that the videos are super quality, but sometimes I might not watch them on my computer. Sometimes I'm watching them on YouTube, and then I'll catch a mistake. It's a finger snap to re-export it and re-upload it, and and fix that mistake. It
Nice.
just
Yeah.
streamlines everything. But we set up a new workstation for Evan. And he knows the basics of editing with iMovie, but over here we're up in our game both on audio capture, on video editing, on color correction, and just really trying to bring things new to life. I feel like I'm spending just as much time gearing up to make videos as making videos. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's a fun challenge, and I do kind of see the end of the road, because we're not making movies over here, right? We just want things to be really good. And oh my God, Mark, talking to you about all this makes me feel so much better. Oh yeah, and last but not least, I love me some controllable devices. but I'm going to have to start declining prototypes because there's a lot of benefits to some of this controllable products, and I just don't understand how my $5 wireless controllable Wi-Fi Miros plugs for $5, it takes less than a breath to pull them out of the package, plug them in, connect them to the network, and program them to do something. Like literally you can hold your breath in the entire time to do that. And other aquarium devices, like sometimes I go into it knowing like the control settings are going to be a little janky, and other times I have higher expectations. But if a company has been doing some kind of controllable network daily for their devices for 5 years and they haven't upgraded it, it already sucks. I don't think they understand that. They're like, oh, we fixed this like 5 or 6 years ago. I was like, no, you didn't. If you don't stick with it, if you don't continuously update and upgrade the method in which your devices are connected and controlled and programmed, you're just falling behind the curve.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still stuck in my controller ways, but a lot of it is more to address my own anxieties, right? It's more built around leak detection, making sure that the trash cans that my RO fills or my sump doesn't overflow. And the funny thing is like, knock on wood, I don't tend to have those issues very often, because if you design a good system, you don't have to worry about that stuff as much. But I just have anxiety about that, and I love that I have something that it's that, and I think you can do this. It'd be cool if the IFTT space gets better, where I can say, okay, if this Bluetooth leak detector that has nothing to do with the aquarium hobby detects water, then do that, right? Like I don't need Neptune or GHL or like honestly, like IFTT, I could do if this then that all day long, right?
I'm about to say something nice about Neptune, and I want everybody to just brace themselves. For the first time in all of these years, I finally saw the use case for having a secondary controller. While I was experiencing some challenges trying to connect directly to an aquarium product that is supposed to work standalone, I was like, oh my God, if I had an Apex connected and I could just offload to the Apex, it's not about having different apps, but all of a sudden I wouldn't have to worry about trying to connect this thing in a different way. I could just be like, just offload it to the Apex controller. It was the first time I was like, why? I've always been in the camp of like, why would you offload the controllability of something that's already controllable? And when all these different companies have so many different ways of connecting. I mean, there's Bluetooth LE, wireless direct, wireless through your router. Just based on a couple others. Web servers. If you could just offload that to one central brain, this is one of those cases where, like, yeah, I could see the use for controllability, but I think we really piqued some interest by talking about our $99 smart pH monitor, and out of $50, because there's your upsale $50 screen. Just make it work with the thing, but $99 out the box. I know the parts are $10 to $15. The packaging costs just as much as the parts and the shipping. But I don't think people know this, but you can get a Bluetooth pH and humidity agrometer that is Bluetooth connected, that logs everything, for $12 freaking retail, Amazon, with a big LCD screen. Did you understand the words that just came out of my mouth? For $12, you can get a temperature, humidity monitor that connects over Bluetooth for $12. The batteries last half a year. Like, I'm not asking for a pH controller or a pH monitor for $12. I'm just saying we have different needs and different expectations for the aquarium hobby. So for $100 plus the R&D to give us a nice swanky, user interface and make sure that it's really, really solid, $99 leaves a lot of room on the table between the $12 Bluetooth hygrometer and the $100 pH monitor. So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, you remember the pinpoint monitors, right? If they would just
Oh
evolve
yeah, they're still
those
around and
to,
they're same price as everything that they did
yeah,
30 years ago. Yeah,
if
same
they could
exact
just
ones.
modernize those, right? And I think somebody mentioned that on the Coral View side, the Hydros, you can, I don't think $99, but you can get into monitoring mode pretty cheap. And I thought that, I haven't really evaluated that product enough, just because I don't have a
Hold that
bazillion
thought.
tanks.
You just start talking about something. And I'm gonna go grab a couple toys.
All right. No, I'm watching. I need to watch the Hydros space closely, just because, one, I like the competition. I like some of the things that I have seen on the surface level, that they are doing. I just want to see, I need to learn more about it, because I can't offer any criticisms about it because I don't know enough about it. And if I had another tank running and I thought, oh, let me go test a new controller, great, but I don't. Everything's on my Apex, and it'd be a pain in the butt to switch that out. So just
All
to
right,
try something new.
Let me show you two toys.
All right.
This is the Hana Halo pH probe. This is Bluetooth controllable, very high accuracy. I've tested a bunch of things. This is like my reference. Anytime I even other Hana stuff. Anytime I calibrate it, like this is the measure by which I compare it. I think this is just under $200. And that's it. Just it's battery powered, and it doesn't. I'm not sure. I don't think it can do a logging function. But when you look at this and it's connected to my phone, there's no reason that this can't be USB powered and connect
Do
to
continuous
Wi-Fi.
monitoring.
Yeah. All right, so there's that. This is my Pasco Scientific wireless pH monitor. So this is basically, it's for those of you just listening, it's just a dongle that connects to a pH pen. And there's no reason you can't
So you can
connect
use
this.
any pH probe, really.
Yeah. So this
That's
is
interesting.
designed specifically for like educational experiments.
Yeah.
So this is Bluetooth, and it's 129, I think, and it can monitor. It can log. It can log for 3 months at like 5-second interval. But I don't need a 5-second interval. Give me a 10-minute interval. But basically, this is a Bluetooth little jobby that turns on for a tiny bit, takes a pH measurement, logs it, shuts off. The only catch with this thing is you can't view the data until you stop the monitoring and download the results.
Yeah. So it's for like an experiment, or
Yeah. This is specifically designed for
But
like pH,
again, you can
for experiments.
extrapolate from that what the possibilities are,
You
right?
know it. You
Yeah.
know it. I mean, this has like a super crazy scientific software behind it that no Aquarius needs. Like, you could totally simplify it. So between these two devices, there's certainly, and this is 129 with the pH probe, right? And this is one about under $200 without the pH probe. So between these two worlds of things that have been available for forever, give me my $99 smart pH pen. We're just going to call it smart pH pen. We're going to start a campaign on every single Reef Therapy is like, where's that $100 smart pH pen, yo? I have talked to some folks about making them from scratch, because it shouldn't be that hard, especially knowing what's out on the market. God, I feel so good every time I rant. Every time I get this out. Every time I get this out. And you know what? I have historically been really bad about discussing my challenges in the aquarium hobby. But I feel like as influencers in the reef aquarium world, I think it's more important than ever for us to explain to people and describe and explain the challenges and express our frustrations that we have when we do things, right? It's just so easy to just always have that cover shot ready to go, and it's not reality. So I think it's great in a way that you and I can talk about the challenges that we're facing.
Yeah, it's I think it's important, right? Because I mean, I don't know. Back in there was a time where we discussed more online with some of the more veteran reef keepers, and the funny part about talking to some of those guys was some of those that were my heroes was like when you got that behind the scenes kind of people just chatting, like they were all talking about crap that they were dealing with, and I was like, they got issues in their reef tank too, right? And that was an eye opener for me back then. And then today, I think it's important to sort of pass that along still,
More than ever. More than ever. It's one thing when the reef aquarium hobby was right next door to alchemy. It's one thing when we don't understand anything and we're just throwing things against the wall, trying to understand like what the corals need. This is like a generation before understanding alkalinity and magnesium. Somehow in the back of our heads we're like, oh yeah, they need calcium. Give them calcium, calcium, calcium. It's all about the calcium. Make sure to keep your calcium up. But we're really testing it. We're just throwing a bunch of calcium in the tank all the time. And now that we understand most things, not maybe most of the chemistry, maybe not so much of the intricacies of the biology, it's more important than ever to just discuss our challenges, because that's how we learn. And it's just kind of disappointing that I'm like out here with my flukes and my ciliates. There's not another person who's looked at some tissues from their corals to try to understand what's happening. So that I'm definitely taking a hard left turn here, and I'm not gonna just let it go. Now I need an answer. Something's got to give.
For as long as you and I have been in this hobby, it's amazing that space hasn't mature. I don't want to use mature. Evolved further, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if we know more about mysterious fish diseases and parasites today than we did 10 years ago. There's not a lot of. I think treatment methods have evolved and improved, but for quarantine, but there's just still not, at least in the hobby, maybe in the public aquarium space it's a different story, but there's just not a lot of information out there, right? I mean, like people refer to flukes as flukes, right?
That's just like saying crustaceans or bacteria. It's just such a huge wide world. You know what? I'll be the first to admit that for 20 years, I was just turned off by the idea of researching fish diseases. Coral disease they're just names that describe what's happening to the coral. There's not any like concrete descriptors of what's happening to the coral, what is consuming the coral, what is causing the problem. There's a lot of speculation, but then follow-up treatments. It's only really in the last couple of years where really large companies that handle a lot of coral, some of them really precious, like worldwide corals, like ACI, like eye-catching corals, that they're starting to have the resources and the wherewithal to be like, okay, we can't just let this happen anymore. We have to put some of these, ailing corals off to the side and just try a little bit of treatment at them and just see what happens. And like I said, I have no illusions that the ChemiClean is going to eradicate what I believe to be a ciliate in my Euphilia-dominated display, but I'm pretty sure the ciliates also don't like it. I'm pretty sure it's going to buy me a little bit of time. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. What the heck is bothering me? All right, I got my therapy out. So now let's come to the meat and potatoes, and you're going to take the lead on this.
I think we did good because we did a little bit of reef aquarium related discussions, and I think we're at the 30-minute mark. Because this is going to be famous last words. I'll regret saying this, but I don't think this vent I'm about to make warrants a whole other 30 minutes, but we'll see. But it's I think it does. You think it does? All right.
I think it just needs to be put out there.
Okay. And I'm going to start with the disclaimer that I am not against people making money, right? I'm not against people running a successful business. I just find these things highly annoying, and that thing I find highly annoying is what is up with all these live sales? Like these auctions, these live sales, and hey, this Saturday, ignore your whole family and hit refresh for 8 hours as we
16
load.
Hours.
16 hours, okay.
24 hours.
As we load corals by piecemeal with discounts, and you don't want to miss out. FOMO. Oh, man. And then you go to their website, and you're like, man, I don't care about the sale. I just want to buy some corals at a reasonable price. And it's like, out of stock, out of stock, out of stock, out of stock. I'm like, but it's on your live sale. You got it on your live sale. You don't have frags like at the regular price, like the day after or the day before. Anyway, so my question is why... And it used to be like a few vendors, but now you go to like the sponsor page of like probably the most popular forum, right? Reef keeping forum. It's just live sale, live sale, live sale, live sale, auction, eBay auctions. What's going on with that stuff? I don't get it. I don't have time for that.
I'm not the one to ask. I really am not. Like, I think once or twice, just out of curiosity,
Sure.
I'm like, you know what? Let me follow
I need
this
another
train.
beer for this.
Let me follow this train and see what station it ends up at. It didn't end up in a station. I mean, I don't know that much about it. Obviously, I've seen the rise of live sales as a promotional tool grow like crazy over the last 10 years. I'm like, isn't eBay good enough? I mean, that's an auction which is sort of live. It's all happening at the same time. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but the one time I really followed along, I watched one of these major coral vendors put up, crazy overpriced chalice coral frags that were listed on their website for $200, for sale for like $35. You're like,
Yep.
what? You're like, wait, what? What? That's not even a sale.
That's like
just
huge.
That's like liquidation.
Yeah.
Right? That's when you take things like 75 to 80% off, that's not a sale. That's like liquidation going out of business thing. So you bring up a great point, Mark.
So my theory on that is, and these are all theories, and for the coral vendors out there, I'm probably going to get most of these wrong, but I'm just an outsider looking in. Is you got the high prices on your regular website that you're going to get the occasional dude that's like, screw it, I'll pay that, right? Mm-hmm. And then you do the live sales to bring in the regular dudes, right? The guys that are more accustomed to paying reasonable prices for like a chalice. So you're able to bridge the gap between the guys that want to pay a more reasonable street price and the guy that just says, screw it, $200, I'll pay that, whatever.
You have the gallery price and then you have the street price.
There you go. But to your point, again, maybe it's less effective as a business model, but why not just have these things available somewhere in the middle, right? Don't go to those rock bottom prices on your website, but if you're going to sell something for $40 at a live sale and $200 during just regular days, like put something in the middle, like charge me $80 for it. I don't know. I don't get the pricing thing. And I wonder if it's a bit of a result of the chop shop mentality, right? They bring in these colonies, they chop them up into tiny bits, and then they throw a live sale out there to get rid of all these little pieces.
The vast majority of live sale corals, unless it's clearly a wild corals, those are chop.
Yeah.
Obviously it's a little bit better, if they're encrusted, but the couple live sales that I've dropped in on, I mean, they had angular edges. Like those things hit the saw a week ago.
Yeah.
And again, that's a super catch-22, but carry on. I'm enjoying your event.
All right.
Because I got mine out.
I already touched upon availability. I am a guy that's like, hey, these are the 5 corals I want to order. And I'm sure some of our listeners can relate to this frustration where you can't find a single vendor that offers all 5 corals. And you're like, well, damn it. Now I got to order from this guy and pay shipping. Or maybe I can get maybe if I throw in a bunch of corals I don't want, I can get to $250 and then I don't pay shipping.
And the trap
it's a
is
trap.
that free shipping. It's just like, I want a coral for $180. I'm just throwing out a random number. Minimum orders or free shipping is at $250, and fish shipping is going to be like 45 to $50, or maybe just $40. I'm like, oh, I don't want to pay for shipping. Let me just grab a couple more junky frags of just some Leptastria, some Cyphastria, some random sticks or whatever. And yeah, I'm not.
You got a lot of room, but you also have a lot of corals. But I don't, right? I don't have room for corals that I don't want, right? And then the other side of it is, okay, so everything's out of stock on your website, but then you have a live sale and you got all these corals, right? If I just hit refresh, 50 bazillion times on a Saturday, I don't get that part either. It confuses me. Like, why is the website just a front, right? Like for the auction? It annoys me, right? Like it's Tuesday. I missed out on the live sale. Okay, but you don't have any corals on your site. Yeah,
that's
that
the other
me.
thing. I see, websites that are being promoted online, promoted in social media, and I'm like, oh, cool. Here's this company I've never seen, and I go and I go into their website, and there's virtually nothing on there.
Yeah,
and I'm like, why are you paying to sponsor, to advertise your website, but you have nothing for sale? That's the bigger mystery.
I found one site, and they didn't have any corals. All they had was click here for the current live auction, or click here for future live auctions. That was the only thing on their website. And I'm like, I don't understand. I guess if that's your sole business model, nothing against that. That's like, you're like, hey, I'm not even going to mess with selling corals on a website. I'm just going to do auctions and post pictures on a Reef forum, and you click on the picture and you buy it, and then you buy your little shipping module.
Let's back it up. You look at the highly flattering photograph taking under very flattering lighting with flattering camera settings that you're then going to throw into Photoshop and boost all the levels to the point where it just doesn't look like the original animal anymore. Like, I have a few Nexus burst anemones. They're amazing. They're really, really cool looking. If you take, an average picture of it with just a yellow filter under bluish white light, it will blow your mind. And I see some folks that are promoting these, half green, half orange Nexus bursts. The levels are pushed so far, they don't look anything like the anemone that I have. Like, not even close. And I'm like, you don't always have to be disingenuous or, worse when you're promoting your stuff. I don't get it. I don't get it either. I don't get what's behind the life sale. Like, I feel like the life sale should be an opportunity to, like, basically be a clearance sale. Right? Yeah. It shouldn't go from $200 to $30, right? If you have some stuff at $120, $140, or $99, then drop $30 on it. Drop it by $30. Drop it by $40. That's more of a clearance sale. But there really is some fascinating psychology at play with these life sales.
Oh, it's FOMO I wanna repeat all the way.
I want to repeat what you said at the beginning. Is we are not criticizing anyone on how they want to make money for the business. You want to eBay, you want to direct sale, you want to go to shows, you want to do live sales, everything. We're just literally just talking about this, the stupefying range of sticker price from every, the gallery price versus the street price. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
At the next Magnum, maybe one of these coral vendors could just blow my mind at the bar and say, look, here's how our business would look if we just sold frags the old-fashioned way, and here's how much more money we make doing this. And I'd be like, man, that makes sense. But as a consumer, that's not interested in spending my weekend hitting refresh. It's highly annoying, right?
Yeah, and you know what?
And maybe it's a little get off my lawn, right? Because I'm not used to it.
You know what? You and me, we are the get off my lawn reefers. Those T-shirts, we're going to have them at MACNA 2029 when they finally have a MACNA again. Sorry, 2022 in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
We are the get off my lawn reefers. But I don't like the gamification of the forum thread either, right? It's like, all right, you want to post up some stories, post up some pictures of the corals that are for sale. Fine. You know what I wasn't prepared for is a guessing game. Ooh, guess how many coral frags we made in the past week for this live sale. And then there's like 12 pages of people posting one number.
Yeah.
How is that fun for anybody? Like, I get it. You want engagement in your live sale thread to keep it at the top of the page. That's not quality, man. That's not content. Then you're just scrolling. Like, I just want to see the coral pictures. Hey, but you know what? You can get around a lot of that live sale shenanigans. Did you know this?
How so?
Did you know that? Whale, when you have 2 to 3 to 4, 5, 6, 700 corals you're going to be posting up in a single weekend, ain't nobody got time to come up with unique file names for each coral and web listing.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much creativity to change the number or the letter in the
Increment
link
the JPEG
and see everything that's coming.
Yeah.
You might be able to buy some. I'm not going to dive deeper. I'm sure we're going to have a bunch of questions. It's not hacking. It's literally just poking around, which I guess is kind of hacking. But not, you don't have to poke around that hard. Just be like, oh, this is everything they're going to post up on a live sale for this whole weekend, and I can look at it right at the beginning.
Well, to me, it's like, it's using, I love forums, right? I love the more long form discussion about reef keeping topics. I don't like that we've seen a lot of people that I enjoyed conversing with about reef keeping going away from forums and more to social media. I get why they did it. But I'm the first to admit that in the age of social media, forums are kind of a dated platform, one that I still enjoy very much, so I'm not insulting it. So it just seems weird to me that they're like, we're going to set up a website where you can buy coral, and then we're going to do this really archaic way of selling corals that like is no different than me posting some frags in the classified, right?
Yeah.
And
It's the
the
same
FOMO
thing, right? The
factor
forum-
pisses me off. Like you're forcing people to be like, oh crap, I don't want to miss that frag. Crap, I just spent $300 and I was really only good for $100. Like it pushes people to go too far, like to I gotta buy that coral. It's on sale.
Here's
And
the problem with the live sale corals. If you're any kind of business, not even corals, and let's say you're a donut shop, and there's a big event outside your store coming up this weekend, and you're going to need to make 5,000 donuts. Do you think those are going to be the best quality donuts you could ever make on any given day?
right.
Of course not, because you're under pressure to make 5,000 freaking donuts for 2 days. I mean, I don't know how many donut people make. Maybe we have some donut, bakers watching who could elucidate that. But no, so same thing with corals. Like if you're any business and you know that you need to have 1, 2, 500, 1,000 corals ready for the weekend, whether it's a month out or a couple weeks out, do you think those are going to be the best quality coral frags of all time? Or are they rushed? Are they being handled with the kind of caution and care and consideration that you would with corals that you've really grown out, that you haven't just chopped up, right? No, of course not. Of course not.
Yeah. No, that's a really good
Mic
point.
drop. That's my mic drop. That's my mic drop moment right there.
Well, and I picture this coral colony coming in from a wholesaler, going to one of these guys. They chop it in a million pieces. They ship out that little frag in that bag. By the time that coral gets to you, it's like, what the hell's going on, right? If a coral had a brain, I guess. But that's a lot of freaking stress for a coral. They're not letting it heal in crust. I don't know. I don't get the logistics of it. I don't get the timing. I mean, some of these vendors have a live sale every month. So, like, is it really a sale at that point? It's just I don't know.
I have to think. Here's my theory. My theory is new reefers, right? New reefers who are new to the scene, who don't know what comes in on a month to month or year to year basis. You know what's going to be available when you ride out through the seasons, right? If you're a new excited reefer and you don't know what's out there, you don't know what can be available from day to day to day, and you've been reefing for 2, 3, 4 months, maybe 6, maybe a year or two, and you're really like in that phase of buying corals for your tank. You see the live sale, and you haven't done that much shopping around. I mean, you and I have been window shopping every place all over the world for 20 years. Like we
Yep.
know stuff comes and goes. Stuff becomes rare and then becomes common again. And some stuff is just absolutely hype bubble time, and it has nothing to do with like the actual scarcity of the coral. And so that's what I think it is. Obviously there's a good angle on it. I'm sure some people have fun. But if you're a
I
newer
bet some
reefer,
people enjoy the adrenaline of it, or whatever you want to call it, right? But I mean, I have a 180-gallon tank. I don't have a 600-gallon tank, right? But even if I had a 600-gallon tank, if I participated in all these live sales, I'd have way too many freaking corals, right?
dude,
So
have you seen these Instagram reef tanks though?
yeah, no,
A
I know.
60-gallon tank will have 200 frags in it.
Yeah, what happens in 5 years? I mean,
No,
they
what
can.
happens in 3 months?
Yeah.
I don't have 200 frags in my 4-foot by 8-foot coral table.
You're either
You
really
know?
good at killing coral, or you're giving away and selling a lot of corals, right? Like there's a turnover rate somewhere in there, because, yeah, to your point, 5 years is probably overestimating. Like in 3 months, if you're good at keeping corals alive or
If you're
decent,
decent, not even good.
you're gonna have some problems.
You can have immediate problems. And you know what? Some of those might be self-correcting, right?
Yeah.
You got a blastomusa next to a lord, next to a recordia, next to, I don't know, a few zoanthids. They might hold the line. They're going to
Yeah.
fill that space, hold the line, and you have 5 corals in a 4-inch by 4-inch section.
Well,
You
and that
know?
was my point. Is like I don't have a really big tank compared to today's standards, but like I don't have room. Like I'm already very selective about what I'm going to put in there.
When I did the coral show a couple weeks ago, the Rocky Mountain Coral Show, I was talking. I love talking to service guys. They have
Yeah.
such a unique perspective on stuff, and they showed me this tank that had, Colorado sunburst, Pikachu acro, French tickler acro, just some really nice torches, and all the corals were spaced like 6 inches apart. And I'm like, man, that's a minimalist looking tank. Like each colony was solidly medium sized, like 4 to 6 inches in diameter. But everything was super spaced out. And the service guys were telling me, yeah, like this guy really doesn't like things touching. Like if they get within a few inches of each other, he'll instruct them to like hack it up. He wants like all this separation between the corals. I'm like, I want to come see that tank. I want to come see that tank, because yeah, things are so crowded. And I think probably the biggest generational gap between 10 to 20-year-old reefers and today is right now there's probably a lot more emphasis on collecting stuff. Man, I've seen single coralites of blastomusa described as mother colonies.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what a colony is? That's more than one. That's more than one. You know what I call a colony? In my mind, like a broodstock colony, that's any coral you need to hold with 2 hands. If you need 2 hands to hold it, boom, you are firmly in colony category. You're colony territory, right? If you need 2 fingers to pick it up, you're still in the frag zone.
Yeah, I mean So I bought some corals this week, and I bought 2 favias, right?
Oh, snap.
And that stressed me out, because
Actually,
I have
you didn't. You
Huh?
did not buy a favia. You buy a Goniastria favuus. It's a very weird micropolyp strain of Goniastria that will sting the shit out of any favia favites you put next to it. Because you got the Ultron favia,
But
and
I also-
Taka also
okay.
got it at the same time. But
yeah,
anyway.
I saw. He actually just friended me on Facebook, and I saw him
He's a
post a
cool guy.
picture, and I was like, "Hey, I just got that coral." The other one I got was the it's not like baby's breath or something, but it almost has like a peachy lime center. But anyway, having grown favids like into mother colonies where they turn into like half this, like a half cut off volleyball. I was like,
Yes.
man, these two corals are going to take up a huge chunk of my tank, right? Like that's where my brain went, and I don't think a lot of people think about that like LPS, like especially those where you have multiple polyps, colostria, whatever, they get big. They do get big. I mean,
Yep.
yeah, I guess you can cut them up on the saw every once in a while and make them small again, but yeah,
I don't
anyway,
think you're
driving that too hard.
Was it
I
Tron
guess,
or Ultron?
I think they call it the Ultron, which I don't understand, but I'm not a Marvel guy, but
So that is not.
so that's a
It is
goniastria.
favet. Yeah, it's one way. If you look at the pictures of the skeleton, not of the living colonies, but the skeleton on Corals of the World, you're like, oh yeah, that's that. It was Jason Fox who turned me on to the very interesting characteristic that these very fleshy, air quote, favias send out sweeper tentacles in a way that you will never see from favias or favites.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And it's those that have a bunch of colors. So I have like a little mini garden of mine, but I do have some that were accidentally mixed. Some actual platygyra, not what's usually being called platygyra. So yeah, those I don't think they're going to be hemispherical. But to your point, that's one thing I've been missing. Some nice round ball-shaped moon corals. Like, I don't care if it's Favia favites, Paragoniastria, Goniastria. I'm looking out for some round ball-shaped moon corals. You know how many round ball-shaped parietes I have? Like 6. I have like 6. I'll go to a shop and like, I don't even look at the price. I'm like, I'll give you $20 for that. I'll give you $20 for that coral, and they'll usually look at me and they'll look at that coral and realize how long they've had it. And like, all right, fine, get it out of here.
Yeah, I grew one lime favia from maybe 2 polyps into like pretty much half a volleyball size, and then I lost it to that SCTN coral killing bacteria, which was a big. I think we talked about that in a previous episode. So you know, I was like, yeah, it's time for me to throw another one into the mix and grow it out, and that's the fun of it, man. You get like something that's 2 polyps and you grow it into the size of a ball, like
The pride.
it's cool as hell. Yeah.
It's so cool. That's one thing I've been missing is round moon corals. I mean, when I first started in the hobby, the Eric Borneman and the other guide. I can't remember his name. I have one of the editions over here somewhere, and it was it was one picture, like not even multiple pictures of the coral, and it's just a ball, and it's really nice and colorful. And got a couple of those things on my radar. But yeah, next, like I discussed or described with my challenges, I've been dealing with the last half a week or a week or so. I need to get rid of corals and stabilize some systems and get super militant about quarantining and isolation, use my dissecting scope and microscope to try to identify what's going on, and then experiment with the ChemiClean and the Reef primer and antibiotics to try to nip things in the bud. Is there more that you wanted to follow up on the live sale side of things?
Like I said, I didn't want to hammer it to death. It's just a weird, mystifying thing. It's cool if it happens occasionally, but that you still have a business model for guys like me that just want to go to your website and buy a few corals every once in a while.
I'll say it again. I don't understand how I get all these ads for new and upcoming coral vendors that have jack shit on their site. I'm like, what? Why are you paying money to advertise a website where there's nothing for sale? Not even like pointing to live sales, not even pointing to eBay sales. And here's a question. What other industry of any kind has these live sales? I can't even think of an analog at all.
None that I'm a part of. The model I did like, and it did stimulate some FOMO as well, was the live aquarium model, right? 6 o'clock Eastern time every day.
4 o'clock Mountain time.
Your time. Yeah, you go hit live aquarium and see what drops in the diver's den,
That's
right?
so nice, man. That is one thing that I don't think they realize how awesome that is. Every day we get a refresh.
Yeah,
And I've been
something
checking
new
it
to
for
look
like
at.
15 years?
Same.
15 years?
And then
he
when there's
wasn't-
that fish you really want, and you're like, oh man, I got to check this out as quickly, because you know it's going in somebody else's cart, and that's where the FOMO
Mhm.
comes in, right? But that's okay.
That's better.
Yeah.
That's better. I actually want to give some props to Live Aquaria because I've been perusing their site for 15 years, and it's only like recently that I recognized that they stand alone
Yeah.
in trying to properly identify their corals. They don't get everything right, but man, they're still trying.
Yeah.
The Micromusa, Lords are Micromusa lordhowensis. Australian scolies are Homophilia australis. And they try to identify like the acros too. Like, I know Kevin is, he shaped that company and really created this machine that is still going. I'm actually really impressed with what's happening over there. I don't know how long it's been since he left. It's like earlier this year or something. But yeah, it's like you don't realize how refreshing it is to not have ultra mega hand-picked super ultra mega rare coral blah blah blah. Not even the right name. Fruity Pebbles, one of a kind showpiece gallery. You're like, what are you doing, man? What other industry does that? What other hobby does that?
Doesn't make sense. Yeah, I know.
Doesn't make any sense.
I love that they have it broken down by mariculture, aquaculture, soft corals, wild soft corals, wild LPS. And that's just the diver's den. Forget about the fact that you can go to the other section and see availability for stuff coming from wholesalers, right?
I don't even look at that, but definitely the diver's den. I mean, you're talking about what like a few hundred pieces of
Imagine
inverts,
the work that goes into
fish.
Dropping that at 4 o'clock your time, 6 o'clock my time, every day.
Every day. I mean, it's got to be 3 people, right? One person to photograph, maybe edit, another one
Yeah.
to organize everything, and maybe a third person to oversee it. Yeah, that is a monumental work that they've been keeping going for dozen years. Yeah. No,
And I imagine they're not just like, hey, we got this fish in yesterday, let's throw it on the diver's
No,
den, right?
no, no,
They're
no.
conditioning
And the other thing
these
is,
fish.
none of their corals are hyped. None
Right.
of them are hyped. They're just wild corals that they've held on to for a while. And if you have a critical eye, you can be like, oh snap, that's a Northwest Australia Acropora efflorescens, or here we have a Pacific Tonga Acropora two-twite lenses going on. Oh, I'm going to be able to color that up. And it's super refreshing that they have realistic photographs, no hype, no made-up names, and they do a really good job at trying to identify the coral to the proper species.
Agreed.
This session of Reef Therapy is not sponsored by Live Aquaria. We're just real talk right here.
That's
Man,
all I had on live sales.
Just the befuddlement.
It's just again, maybe it's me, maybe everybody loves them. I just find them highly annoying.
I think it's newbies. I think it's newer aquarists who have that intense FOMO because they haven't been to a bunch of stores, bunch of reef shows, bunch of online shops, and they really, in the moment, feel like they're winning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the adrenaline of the acquisition and less so, hey, I'm looking at this blank canvas of a tank. What do I want it to look like? What kind of corals do I want to keep? That's the angle I'm coming from, right? It's like I start to picture, I think a Leptoceras would look really cool there, growing away, doing this little thing. I think.
What color?
I had the Jason Fox leprechaun for a long time. I lost it during the move. Yeah, the
Jack-o'-lantern, yeah.
I lost it during the move. I think it was on one of the rocks that I was like, that's just base rock. I don't, because I downsized.
Do you remember the Rena Spinkle?
No.
Yeah, I've had this one strain of orange Leptoceras for, I think I got it in 2009. I think I got it from Live Aquaria, of all places. Well, we're talking about a time where the Leptoceras was not on anybody's radar, and I saw this decent colony of Leptoceras mycetosteroides, and I've been kicking around for 12 years. I actually need to spray that thing out because I only have it on this one piece of river rock, super heavy.
Have you seen the purple one? It's like a purple lepto with orangey yellow polyps.
not a Leptocerus.
Is that not Leptocerus? What is that?
That's a Cosinaria. Cosinaria will get legit purple with some degree of fuzziness.
Interesting. Okay.
It's got a kind of microstructure that I'm not gonna like immediately slam somebody for calling it Leptocerus. But once again, if you take it from a frag to a colony and you let some of the older tissue and skeleton, really develop, it'll get a little bit more convoluted in its skeletal mass, and it'll develop a lot more tissue to the point where you're like, yeah, that's not a Leptocerus. And then Cosinaria is a genus that you can find in really shallow, really bright water. Right, first it really does seem like a Leptocerus, like give it lower lighting conditions, lower water flow, really sheltered, higher nutrient. But most of the Costinaria that I've seen has actually been in super shallow water, and that is a genus that I do not have at the studio at all. I'm not sure if I've ever had a piece of Costinaria actually.
I saw that recently, and I thought that would be kind of a fun contrast coral to throw into the mix as well, but I didn't buy it. So
yeah, no. There's at least one species of Costinaria that is unquestionably purple lavender, just like a Tonga purple bullseye, like a Rhodactis, right? So if you keep it in bluer light, it's going to look black. It's going to look gray. It's going to look dumb. If you keep it in warmer daylight spectrum, you're going to be rewarded with a very interesting coral. And I'm not sure which species of Costinaria the purple one is, but there is a Costinaria columna that develops like thick fingers, kind of like a Dendrogyra, like the Caribbean coral that's extinct from Florida. Again, you're talking about a coral that's a foot across and a foot tall to develop these tall columns, and the only thing that would be comparable would be like Pavona maldivensis. Just a really cool, neat. It's not even branching anymore. It's like club-shaped growth. Just big clubs coming up.
Interesting. See, now I got to go hunt up that name.
No, but you won't find that name. You won't. This is the internal problem. No one's trying to identify corals actually. And so when I went out looking for Marulina, I typed in all kinds of goofy stuff. Typed in Leptocerus, and I ended up finding a couple Marulinas labeled as Platygyra. There's no freaking way you're going to find Costinaria out there in the wild properly identified. You're going to have to look for purple Leptocerus or purple Lithophyllon. Or purple no ID. Who knows?
No, but I'm gonna look it up. I got that new Coral ID book. That's a genus I haven't even. That hasn't even hit my brain. So you said it, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So, something new to look at.
Coral Finder is an amazing guide. We're gonna plug it again. Do I have mine close by? I'm not sure. But Russell Kelly is going to be presenting at I guess Mini Macna, I guess in September in lieu of the actual Macna. So that's going to be an awesome talk. But I spent a lot of time talking to the guy, so he really knows his stuff. He started out Coral Finder by basically borrowing a lot of images from Varen with his permission. And it's been like 10 years. He's worked really diligently to take photographs to illustrate corals at the colony level, at the branch level, at the coralite level. And if you're serious about Coral ID, the Coral Finder Guide 2021 is untouchable. You don't have to get down to the species. You get down to the genus, you know pretty much everything you know about that group of coral. And that's where Coral Finder is great. And it's also got the complementary videos that help you with some workshops and help you to use the Coral Finder a little bit better.
Nice. I need to check out the videos. I didn't even know those existed.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
a bummer.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
They have companion videos to go with a Coral Finder guide.
Shoot. Huh? I gotta go check that out.
All right. Man, I feel lighter. Do you feel lighter?
I do feel better. I do.
I don't know what's up with life sales, but if there's anyone watching on YouTube right now who has some insight or some feedback about what is up with the live sales. Like, I think we all can understand auctions, but with the live sale thing, if you're a buyer or if you're a seller, tell us, school us. Let us know in the comments. Or we sincerely want to understand this phenomenon that is live sales, that's dominating our social media advertising, and so on and so forth. So, pretty good session, Mark. Thanks a lot for hashing it out with me.
Yeah,
Thanks
man.
everybody for listening. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcatcher. Make sure to review us on your favorite podcatcher and subscribe to the official Reef Therapy YouTube channel, because in a short amount of time, all the videos of the Reef Therapy sessions are only going to be on the Reef Therapy channel.
Yeah, we don't want to lose any of you guys as we move things over. So
Yeah, you know what? We're losing for a few months, and then they'll realize, hey, I haven't heard Reef Therapy in a while. Where do I find it? Reef Therapy YouTube. Tell your friends. All right, let's end on that note, and we'll
Yeah.
come around next week. That sound good?
sounds good, man. I'm
All right,
sure.
Mark, you
I'm
have a good
sure I
night.
will need another session in about 7 days.
I'm sure we will. We got 7 days to go, and plenty will happen in the meantime. All
All
right,
right,
Mark.
man.
I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Good to see you.
All right, bye.